So 8.7 is about mutations. So our essential question is, can DNA change? The answer is yes, of course it can. All right, mutations are changes in DNA that may or may not affect physical features. And then there's some fun pictures. A turtle with 2 heads, a duck with 4 feet, a spotted, I don't know if it's an alligator or a crocodile. Either way, those spots aren't supposed to be there. So mutation is a change in an organism's DNA. Many kinds of mutations can occur. And the most common process that mutations occur during is replication. We learned about replication way back in 8.3. DNA copies itself. And sometimes there can be errors. There are different types of mutations. A point mutation just substitutes one nucleotide for another. Sickle cell disease is that kind of mutation. There are some called a frame shift mutation, which will insert or delete a nucleotide in a DNA sequence. We know by now that we read DNA 3 by 3 by 3 by 3. So if you insert a nucleotide in the middle of a DNA sequence, it's going to shift that reading frame so that we read the wrong set of 3. Or if you delete, it'll shift that reading frame over. It'll start reading the wrong set of 3. That's why they're called frame shift mutations. And chromosomal mutations affect many genes. It can affect many genes. Sometimes it just affects one, like sickle cell disease. Sickle cell is caused by a point mutation where there's just one substitution for another and it's the wrong one. So here are some examples. This isn't something, you guys have this picture. You can write it down. It is useful. But here is a sample sentence. The fat cat ate the rat. Every word is 3 letters because we read DNA 3 by 3 by 3. Each word represents an amino acid, and then the whole sentence represents a protein. A substitution or a point mutation, we're just going to take the F and turn it into an H. We substituted the H for the F. The whole frame of reading didn't shift, and there's still 3 letters each, but it doesn't quite make sense. The hat cat ate the rat. That sentence doesn't make as much sense as the first one. Now, the last 2 are the frame shift mutations. Deletion will cause the entire frame to shift. So if we just cut out that F right there, everything else shifts to the left, and now the sentence makes absolutely no sense. And then same with a duplication or an insertion. If we insert an extra F right here, it did the same thing. It shifted the reading frame so that the sentence no longer makes sense at all. So these are examples of how these mutations would potentially affect the amino acids and eventually the whole protein. Some mutations affect physical traits. And sometimes they can be beneficial. Sometimes they can be harmful. Somatic mutations occur in non-reproductive cells, and these do not get passed to offspring. So we talked back in chapter 6 about somatic cells versus germ cells or gametes. Somatic cells are all of our body cells, our brain cells, our skin cells, our heart cells. And then our germline mutations, those are our gametes, happen in the sperm and eggs. Since those are the cells that make babies, those have the potential to get passed on to offspring. Now, we don't always pass all of our genes down to our offspring. We only get to pass half of our genes to our offspring. So our offspring might or might not inherit our mutated gene. Sickle cell anemia is caused by a single nucleotide substitution in the DNA strand that codes for hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the molecule that carries iron in our blood. So people with sickle cell disease don't carry iron very well, and as a result, iron binds oxygen, don't get enough oxygen. Some mutations do not affect physical traits. A lot of mutations are what we call silent. It can occur in a non-coding region of DNA. Like I said, we have 3 billion base pairs. Not every single base pair is translated into a protein. Some of our DNA they're called non-coding regions, and nothing happens to them. So if there's a mutation in a non-coding region, then it really doesn't matter because it doesn't affect us. It can code for the same amino acid. If you remember the genetic code, there are 4 different letter combinations that will code for PRO, which stands for proline. So if CCU, that last U accidentally gets mutated into another C, it doesn't really matter because the same amino acid will result. That is called redundancy. It also may not affect the physical shape of a protein. Proteins fold a certain way based on are they acids, are they bases, are they positive, are they negative? If a protein that's negative gets mutated, but that second protein is still negative, it will still act in the same way, so the protein will fold in the same shape. Mutations can be caused by several factors. Like we said in the beginning, replication errors are very common. They can cause mutations. Mutagens, which are just things that cause mutations. UV rays from the sun will cause skin cancer. You got that one, Christian. Other chemicals can cause mutations. Asbestos used to be used in a lot of construction, but a lot of people started getting cancer from it. So they figured out we can't use that anymore. X-rays will cause mutations if you're overexposed to them. Sometimes we use mutations to our benefit. Some cancer drugs will cause mutations in order to kill cancer cells. We talked once upon a time that cancer is a disease of the cell cycle. A gene gets mutated, and they don't read those stop signs anymore, and they just keep dividing and keep dividing. Well, we want to mutate that cancer cell so it stops dividing, so it dies. We figured out how to do that for certain types of cancer. and evolution, which is our next chapter. So mutations have been a source of genetic variation, which has led to the evolution of millions of organisms after billions of years. So in this first panel, you can see there's a bird. The bird is hunting for all these mice. Well, it's going to eat the mice that it can see. So it can see all these light mice against the dark background. So the bird comes and eats half the mice die, but most of those mice are the white mice. So it's the black ones, the camouflaged ones that will survive and reproduce and pass on their dark fur to be able to be camouflaged more. And that all happened because of a mutation originally.